Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Sugar Mama's Fire Play podcast. I am Canna Campbell. Two quick reminders. Number one, make sure you are subscribed and following this show, Sugar Mama's Fire Play, which is published every Monday morning at around about 5 a.m. My second podcast is called How Do They Afford That? And it's with the guys from Fear and Greed, one of Australia's top business podcasters, and we publish our podcast every Wednesday morning, so you get double the podcast love. So I will link both shows in the podcast notes. Now, a quick reminder, as you know, all of my content is always general advice. It's never personal advice, product advice, or investment advice. Whenever you wonder, should I be doing this? Is this something we should be doing? Go and speak to a financial planner and ask them for personal advice based on your own financial situation and goals. All right, let's begin today's podcast. Hi everyone, welcome back. I am Canna Campbell from Sugar Mama TV. Today, I'm excited about sharing with you another one of these amazingly powerful, motivating, and empowering conversations with everyday people as they go through their own financial wake-up call, where they realize that they are so capable of achieving so much more. They realize that there's so much to learn about money and so many hacks and tricks and strategies to master that's only going to give them more financial freedom and independence. Today, we are joined by Natarsha. Natarsha has a story that a lot of people are going to relate to, including stages of my life myself. And there's some really important words of wisdom, wake-up calls that she's going to share with us along the way. Natarsha, thank you so much for giving up a couple of hours on your Saturday morning.
Thanks, Canna.
Can you take me to the very start? Talk to me about when you first started experiencing money and what you grew up around, and where does it all begin?
Sure. So I'll try my best to deliver a condensed version, but I was born and raised in Adelaide, and it was here I laid the foundations of my career. But in September 2017, I packed my bags with $100 or so in my bank account and moved to the most expensive city in Australia, Sydney. It was for a job that I was offered. So I was 25 years old, new to the city. Naturally, I was attracted to the eastern suburbs of Sydney, which some would argue, no wonder you barely made ends meet. But yeah, I guess for me, it made me happy at the time. It was only, $100 or so difference in rent compared to, say, the inner west, where a lot of my colleagues lived more comfortably. But somehow I did make it work, and I was there for just under 2 years. But I guess the key word in all this is somehow. I did make it work. I don't even know how, though.
At what cost?
Yes, that's right. And so I guess my brother and I, we grew up comfortable. We didn't really go without. We were enrolled in various co-curricular activities and sports. And I wouldn't say my parents had money, because they didn't. They lived paycheck to paycheck, and they received a lot of financial support from my mum's parents. Okay. So sometimes I think, if it wasn't for my mother's parents, and mum worked incredibly hard, but it was just really difficult. But one thing that has stuck out to me as I've grown older, and I'm 28 now, is the relationship and understanding I had with money from, say, age 14 up until about 26. And while I absolutely do not blame my parents for this at all, I was just never taught about growing money or saving money or, investment properties, or I didn't even know what super was. My parents just never spoke about money, and the reality is it's because they didn't have a lot of it. They didn't know how to save or invest or grow. I did get my work ethic though from mum. I remember being 6 or 7 years old, and mum was working full time during the day, and she would clean people's homes and offices on the weekend for extra cash.
Yeah. God,
yeah, she was a very hard worker. Oh, absolutely. And even my grandma, which we beg her to stop, but she's 74 and she's still working full time at the moment.
Oh,
so
wow.
I know.
Hard work is in your blood.
An incredible Absolutely. And so I guess 14 years old came around. I got a casual job at Baker's Delight.
I had friends that also worked at Baker's Delight. It's a great part-time role for school kids to earn a bit of extra money and
It's incredible.
yeah, great work ethic and learn procedures and policies and customer service. So that was your part-time after school job.
Yeah, so I worked there, I reckon, from age 14 up until 17. But at that time, so I was year 12, I actually had 2 jobs. So I also studied my degree full-time whilst working 3 jobs at one point rather. And looking back, I think, wow, I was a bloody rock star. Like, how did I do that?
Yeah.
But I did. I worked at Peter Alexander, an ice cream store, Baker's Delight, and then I quit Baker's Delight. And so this is the thing, and this is sometimes I look back and I think, where did I go wrong? Because I guess from age 16, I began paying for everything for myself. So my car, registration, petrol, beauty, clothing, phone bill. I was barely left with anything. So saving money never worked for me because I would always dip into it. And the reality is it still kind of doesn't, but I have made it work for me in a way where I do live comfortably now. And I believe I have true financial independence, which is something I never had. And I guess Sydney was my big wake-up call. It rocked me to my core and it made me think, I really need to get my finances in order and I really need to get to the bottom of why I don't have a healthy relationship with money, because I never blew money on silly things. I really do look back and think, wow, and I know we shouldn't compare ourselves to other people, but I think, where on earth did I go wrong? Like, I studied really hard. I had, I was earning really good money, but I just could not save because it was like this psychological thing that when I would hit $1,000 in my savings account, and I had a health appointment or 2, I would say spend $250 on the health appointment, and then maybe I'd book flights to go home and see my partner and my family in Adelaide, and then I was left with $300, and I would be like, oh, you know what? I'll just transfer it back into my everyday account. Who cares? I'll start saving fresh from next week.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there for a second because there's a really interesting self-sabotaging habit there that I'm hearing. And I often see this with people in credit card debt. They think, well, I already owe $5,400 on my credit card. What's the difference between that and $6,000? So I may as well just go and buy this $600 dress. Who really cares? Like, it's bad. Getting a bit worse isn't that much more serious for me financially. And there's also an element of a lack of financial worthiness with money that some people have. Like, they almost subconsciously get rid of it. They're great at earning it, but they don't think they're worthy of holding on to it and keeping it and even building it. So it's easier for them to just let it go, whether it be spending, whether it be donating to charity, whether it be giving money away, whether it be just blowing it on experiences and stuff. Quite often, they don't feel worthy of actually having money, and it doesn't sit with them in a comfortable way. And that's where this self-sabotaging behavior can really kick in. And I think it sounds like for you, it was almost always too hard. So you got to the stage where you were like, well, what's the point trying? I can never do it. It's never going to work. So I'm not going to bother. Kind of like, I guess, someone, being on a diet, never working, well, I'm giving up on trying to diet because it never works. I never see any results. So what's the point in sacrificing and driving so hard? But I have clients and of all sorts of different backgrounds, and it's got nothing to do with how much you earn, but what you do with what you earn. And a lot of us, including myself, we convince ourselves that, our lifestyle isn't really that expensive and we don't really blow money, or we are quite frugal. But it's not until you sit down with a pen and a paper and you look at your transactions on your bank account and your credit card and you write them all out, and you realize that we are luring ourselves into, we're lying to ourselves, not even luring ourselves. We're lying to ourselves about really what our cost of living is. And I don't say that against being, against anti-self-love, because we've got to buy things that make us happy. But we can very easily convince ourselves that we don't spend as much money as what we really do, which is why I always recommend people do a budget. But I can definitely sense that for you, there's probably an element of the too hard basket and a bit of self-sabotaging in there. So talk me through, like, you've got this job, you've quit Baker's Delight now, you're finding that no matter how hard you try, you just can't come up with savings. There's always something that comes up.
Absolutely. Like, so my first job in my field was when I was 22. So all my casual jobs, you know, they were a thing of the past by then, and I was 22. And this is what I mean about, you know, never really learning or being financially literate. I remember my first paycheck when I was 22 in my first official, you know, job in my field was, I think $650, right? And I reckon, was that for a fortnight or for a week? I reckon it was, you know, well, maybe it was per week. But anyway, so it was $650. And I always said to myself, when I get my first paycheck for my new job, I'm going to buy myself a Burberry bag. And, you know, as you know, they're in excess of sometimes $4,000. So that, I didn't buy my first Burberry bag until actually 4 months ago, and I'm 28 now. So that was like a bit of a rude.
Yeah.
You know, I started on a low income when I was 22. 24, I moved back to Adelaide, and I was on a low income for a little while, but then I went on a really good contract, and I remember thinking, whoa, I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to buy a really cool car, this is amazing. But looking back, I think, oh dear girl, like, you just had no idea about, and it's not even necessarily about saving. I just feel like I seriously, like what you were saying before, I had no idea about money. I actually didn't understand it. I feel like sometimes people are either born with it or they're not, but I've actually had to teach myself. And
no one is
I'm
born
so much
with it.
better for it now.
No one was born with it. You teach yourself and you go through a journey. And whilst I fully acknowledged, and I'm extremely grateful for the fact my parents instilled financial wisdom and mindful moneyness in me, you can pick it up at any stage of your life. It's never too late, and it's never too early. And when you do this, it's like you have a new profound appreciation to the flow of money in your life. And it's not like I give you a lobotomy and you'll have this new part of your brain that's programmed to do amazing mathematical calculations with finance in your head. It's a journey. It's about learning the foundations first, about how to run a budget, how to manage your cash flow, how to, what to do when you get a pay rise. Like, it's the foundations first. And if you don't have the foundations, it's going to make it much harder for yourself if you try and leap over the basics and go straight for the more advanced investing, retirement planning, strategy stuff. So it's a journey, and it's week by week, you learn a bit more, and day by day, and then you might go through a plateau and you don't learn anything new, but you're learning maybe in the field through experience and through conversations with friends and family members and listening to podcasts and reading. And then you hit another growth spurt or another aha moment where you learn more. You're always fine-tuning your financial journey. And I'm on my journey too. I'm always learning new things about adapting my budgets and learning about new investment or change or an alternative strategy as Tom and I merge finances. Like, it's not something you just wake up one day and there you go, it's magically, I've cast a spell over you. It's a journey, and you've got to respect the process, like just like a gestation process of a baby in a woman's stomach. Like, it grows, and it grows slowly and steadily so that it's a healthy growth. So yes, sorry, coming back to your new salary, I bet your lifestyle went up with this new salary.
Well, the thing was, in Sydney, I look back at my time and it was incredible. Like, I achieved all my career dreams. I did everything that I ever wanted to do. But I didn't enjoy my life, to be quite frank. Kind of upsets me to say that, because I'm back in Adelaide now, and while it's incredible to be around friends and family, and of course my partner and I were doing long distance, so that was a challenge within itself and very expensive. I look back and think I just really had no money to do anything, because the expenses were so high. In Adelaide, we don't have tolls, we don't pay for tolls, and everything in Sydney is so much more expensive. I also took a $10,000 pay cut to move to Sydney. And again,
Wow.
this is all part of growing up.
Mm.
I had no idea how to negotiate a contract. So there's me being offered this dream job in Sydney. And I didn't even think, Tash, you know, you're taking a $10,000 pay cut to move to the most expensive city, you know, in Australia. Instead, I just said, it will be fine. I'll figure it out when I get to Sydney. And, you know, family members sort of said to me, are you sure? And it really hit me hard. It really hit me hard. Like rent was, I lived with my best friend in Sydney because she had moved a few years earlier. So, you know, I did have support there, which was great, but she had her own life. I had my own life. Our hours clashed because I was very much a shift worker at the time. And I feel like I just never ever had money left over, and I was always writing budgets. And this is the thing, Canna, like I don't know where I kind of went wrong, because I am such an organized person, like almost too organized, but I could never stick to a budget ever.
I was going to say, you can write a budget, it's great, but if you're not sticking to it, you might as well throw it out the window. Your budget is your boundary that you stick to. Look, I have to say, I love your faith. You were like, everyone's like warning you, going, oh, this is going to be dangerous. You're taking a pay cut, moving to, going to be living in one of the most glitzy, glamorous, keeping up with the Joneses cities and areas in Australia. And there you are like, no, I'm going to do it. Like, I love that. We've all got to give back ourselves and give everything a good crack, because you never want to live with regret. So don't be sad about, you know, the fact Sydney didn't turn out to be what you were hoping it would be, because it's all part of your journey, a part of life. And we all have these moments in our lives where we have to go, you know what, I've got to, you know, didn't work out, wasn't right, and get on with life. I think it's a great experience what you had, and it's added to the richness of who you are as a person. So yeah, I actually love hearing this. It's so real and so honest. And this is what we need to bring down, these walls and these barriers and these masks that we carry around, particularly as social media, making everything look perfect, when sometimes it's not what it looks like. We're not as happy, and it takes strength and honesty and humility to go, you know what, I'm not happy. This isn't right for me. I'm not living a life aligned to my value system. I'm not feeling fulfilled. So I think that's really commendable of you.
Thank you. Well, yeah, and, you know, that means a lot, because even right now, speaking with you, I am doing a bit of reflecting, and I think, you know, I did do good. Maybe I saved $2,000 in 2 years, and which is funny because I feel like I, you know, can save that in 3 weeks now. It's like,
wow,
it's kind of funny to look back and think I was in such a dark place. Like I really was. And I never had credit cards. I did have a car loan at one stage. Well, at 2 stages in my life, I did have car loans, but I never really had a credit card. I think I had one when I was 20, and it was simply as an emergency for when I went on my first big overseas holiday. Yeah. So I don't think I even used it, to be honest, but I've never really believed in credit cards. I wasn't a big party animal. So, you know, the majority of people my age were out partying and spending money on booze, and that's fine. I'm more into the fitness kind of side of things, but I just never spent money on silly things. I really didn't. The only thing I can think of, you know, when I look back is, so once I had paid all my expenses, and I'm very, very good at making sure I've never paid a bill late. You know, I always make sure everything is paid, but I would leave myself last. So there were times that I look back and I seriously remember opening my pantry in Sydney being like, oh shit, I have like $5 in my account until, you know, the next paycheck, which was coming probably in like 3 or 4 days. What am I going to eat? And I had too much pride to reach out to my partner or to family members for help, because in a way, they were already so against me going, not my brother or my partner, but I guess it was more from a good place though, not like do not go. It was more, they came from Greece to Australia for a better life. They literally had nothing when they built their lives here. And so it's very against the ordinary for my family for someone to move interstate. Like, it's quite a big thing. So I had a lot going against me. Like, I had a lot against me, and my brother was very supportive of me. Funny, we're best friends and I'm super, super close with him, but I was so embarrassed to ring him and be like, hey, I've got $5 in my account. I really need to eat. Like, can you? And that's the thing. And so I guess I just was in such a dark place financially that I got to this point where, for other reasons, I decided to move back to Adelaide. And once I did, I thought, I seriously cannot live like this anymore. Like, it's making me almost, like, depressed in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
People on the outside look in and think, wow, she's young, she's successful, she's doing this. And while I do feel like I do have a great career and I'm really passionate about different things and I'm always wanting to learn, I just was so like in a dark place financially. And so I started reading your books and I started reading other books and I just started learning. And it was because of you that I now am obsessed with my share portfolio.
Oh, you don't know how good that is hearing that. Like, I like share portfolio. That's so cool. Like that's so empowering. It's so sexy. I think hearing women saying, I've got a share portfolio, my dividends, like, yes, go girl power. Like, this is what we need. More people, like, don't pass this off to your partner or your father or your grandfather. Like, do it for yourself. Educate yourself. Save up some money when you're ready. As you educate yourself along the way, when you're ready, go and invest that money, invest it, keep and repeat that process over and over again so that you are financially independent, you are financially stable, you have financial freedom. The benefits, the confidence, the self-love, the energy, the shine that comes from knowing, you know what, whatever happens, I can still stand on my own 2 feet, whether it be a job, whether it be a health scare, whether it be a partner breakdown, like whatever it might be, like, I am strong, I am independent, and I am successful in my own right, and all off the back of my own hard work and education and proactiveness and responsibility in life. It feels so good, so happy. Like, I'm exploding inside hearing about, like you just said, obsessed with your share portfolio. So your defining moment was that I don't have enough money to eat dinner tonight, basically.
Pretty much. But the thing is, I had that moment a few times in my 20s. I think for me, the big defining moment was moving back to Adelaide with no full-time job for the first time in my career. I was freelancing. I came back on a freelance basis. However, I was very lucky enough with contacts and skills that I had that I did get work. So I came back and I got work. I was working at two to three outlets at the time. So that was good. But I think it was just this moment in my life where I was like, okay, things are very real now. You are 27. I was back living with my mum. I had no full-time job, no, I guess, stable, paycheck coming in. And I thought, I just can't do this. Like, I don't want to compare myself to friends and other people because I guess they didn't spend $40,000 over a 2-year period in rent in Sydney. So,
I think it's a slippery slope to start comparing yourself to other people because it's a bottomless pit, and you're just going to make yourself feel worse and more depressed and worthless, and it's not actually going to help you in any way whatsoever. And I do actually want to share a quick story with you about, I guess, not having a food for dinner. I remember I had a similar moment to you, and I would have been in my early 20s, and I had moved out of home. I was living in my first apartment, and I think I had the same, I can't remember the exact details, but a friend of mine said, I don't have enough money for dinner. I've only got like $5 for dinner. Do you want to come and meet me to get some chocolate waffles? And her and I were obsessed with these chocolate waffles from Max Brenner. Anyway, I was like, yes. And then I realized, actually, I don't have enough money to go and meet my friend for $5 waffles. I didn't have any debt or anything like that, but I remember I was on a really, really tight budget at the time. I had to go through my car, get the loose change from my car. I still didn't have enough loose change in my car. I had to go fishing under the seat where I'd dropped a few coins here and there. And anyone drove past us, they're like, what are those two people doing? That we both had our bums up in the air, like digging under the car seats, trying to catch all the coins that had just dropped down the side of the car seat. Found enough money between the two of us, went running into Max Brenner, like laughing our heads off, thinking, we got through this by the skin of our teeth. Got our waffles, like our takeaway waffles. And I'm such a piglet. I had to have mine was swimming in melted chocolate sauce, like to the point where I was like doing backstroke across my plate. Anyway, we're walking out laughing our heads off. I trip over. The waffle goes flying, smacks against my car, drops down into the gutter.
No.
I literally could have started crying. Actually, I think I did. I was, that combination of like crying and laughing at the same time. And my friend at the time, she was like, oh my gosh, like we were laughing, but she was really laughing. I was laughing and crying. And she sat in the gutter, was like, I'll share with you my waffle. And we sat in the gutter together. And even though I was on that tight a budget, I didn't have enough money to splurge on a $5 waffle. The beauty of that moment was, sometimes you have to look at this and go, what a real raw moment. And it was a moment that produced a beautiful outcome, and that realized the value of that friendship. And we sat in the gutter together, laughing our heads off, sharing this one waffle covered in chocolate together. As happy as a pig.
Love that.
In mud. And I share this with you because I don't want you to feel ashamed of those moments. I want those moments to define you, to, I guess, wake you up, and everyone else listening, thinking about their moments where they've been too poor to, pay a bill or to put food on the table. Use those moments as your wake up call to do things better, to educate yourself, to inspire yourself, to raise your benchmark, and to do things differently, because whatever you're doing right now is not working if you're in these situations and they're repeating themselves. So I hope that makes you feel a bit more comfortable, and even almost value and respect those moments where you're like, sorry, I don't have enough money to pay for food tonight. Your catalyst for going for a better, healthier, happier life financially.
Absolutely. And I guess, 15 months ago, I came back to Adelaide with maybe $1,000 or $2,000 in my account. And right now, in this very moment, I look at, my share portfolio, my account, my goals. I want to buy an investment property here. I want to move to America at some stage in my life for a year to work. There are so many things that I want to do. And if I didn't start 15 months ago, I would just be even more depressed. And I know money isn't everything. No, I know that, but in a way, I just wouldn't be able to do the things that I feel I was put on earth to do if I didn't have that moment. And so looking back, I am very, very proud of myself. And I think, wow, I once read this quote, and I can't even remember how it goes, but it's something, like 6 months from now, you can be in a completely different financial mindset, happiness, blah, blah, blah. And I look at it and I think, wow, that's so true. I seriously thought it was the end of the world 15 months ago. I thought my life was over. I thought, I'm 27 and I have nothing, or 26, whatever it was. I have nothing. And now I'm 28. I've moved out with my partner. We're renting, but the rent here is so much cheaper compared to Sydney. I've got a really good saving strategy, and not just saving, but growing strategy, because I sometimes feel like saving for me, and I know some people may disagree with this, but I almost think sometimes saving accounts don't work so well with me because they kind of go against evolutionary biology in a way. You just want to dip into your resources. And so for me, I'd much rather put it in shares. I just don't want to see it. I don't want to have access to it. I don't want to see it. Just put it in shares. I've still got an emergency fund. I've got, savings. I live comfortably. But for me, I can't just have 40 grand sitting in a savings account because I'm still a work in progress. I'm still trying to figure out, okay, Tash, do not touch that. Do not touch that money.
And that's the $1,000 project. Whenever I have $1,000, I can't just sit there. It must be invested. Yes. And there's almost like an element of relief for me with that, in that I immediately invested. So you remove temptation. The money's gone. And I've proactively and responsibly put it towards my financial future and use that to buy a growing passive income stream that I'll never sell. And then instead of spending that money, I immediately invest it, but I invest it into, high quality industrial stocks through listed investment companies or ETFs. So I can completely relate to that. And it makes sense because a savings account at the moment, you'll be lucky if you get 1%. Yeah. Investing in shares, if you just forget about the capital growth, because I'm all about buying for the income stream. You've got shares that are still yielding 4%. So, people get really frustrated thinking, well, I'm earning barely anything off my savings account. Perhaps some of that money needs to be put towards your long-term financial future within, an educated, informed risk profile and understanding of what you're doing and the risks you're taking on board, of course. But if you want to build wealth, doing it by saving is a very slow and painful way. And I have a feeling you'd be quite an active, not hyperactive, but an energetic, lively person that would get really frustrated with savings, even if you could save.
Yes.
It sounds like it's best for you to go and invest that and to keep building your portfolio, because that drives your motivation, that drives your focus, that is what is aligned to your value system, and more importantly, aligned to your long-term financial goals of independence and financial freedom. So it's really important that I love that you're aware of that trigger. You're aware of that trap, that vulnerability, that danger zone. So okay, the moment I've got savings above a certain amount, it goes to be invested.
Yes.
You've created a financial safe house for yourself so that you can continue on with financial success in building your wealth.
Yes, absolutely. And I guess for me, all I wanted was to just be financially literate. It's so important. I just think the sooner you master it, the better. How we earn it, how we, manage it, spend it, grow it. And I finally feel like for the first time in my life, financially, I've achieved independence, and it seriously just feels so great. It is just an incredible feeling. And the thing is, you don't have to earn a lot of money. You can be earning, $500 a week versus $2,000 a week. It's how you manage your money.
Yes.
I'm such a big believer.
Just as you were talking about that quote, I remembered that quote. I'm very familiar with that quote, but I have one on my Instagram account, and this may have been the one that you saw, but I wrote, your entire life can change in a year. You just have to love yourself enough to know you deserve more. Be brave enough to demand more, be disciplined enough to actually work for it. So, I think you are a testament to that. You've really turned your life around, and now you have, a growing share portfolio. You've got financial goals that you're working towards, and you are heading in a much healthier, happier direction. If you could go back in time to your younger self, what would you say to yourself? And what would you say to all the listeners right now who can really relate to your story, your moments, bad habits and triggers and vulnerabilities? What would you want the people listening to this podcast right now, as they finish listening to it, go, right, this is the change I'm going to make today?
Yeah, sure. I guess it is important to note that everyone's journey is different, but I feel like the most powerful thing in the world is education. And that's seriously how I got out of my rut. I just educated myself. I read so many financial books. I was constantly Googling how to grow money, learning about compound. I had no idea what compounding was until I was 27. And those dark moments that you have in your life where you have $3.30 in your bank account and your next paycheck isn't coming until next week. I just think it's important, it's probably easier for me to say this now, but it's important to own those times.
Yeah.
Just own it and be proud of it, because it's not always going to be that way. And education is just so important, and financial literacy. And it's something a lot of people sadly aren't taught. They don't know. I wasn't taught it. I had to learn it later in life, which is fine because I'm so very grateful. But I guess my message would be never stop learning. Like you say, you're at a position where you are empowering so many men and women, but you are still on your own journey. And that is just, and it's power.
That will never change. Even though I'm in my 90s and approaching 100, I'm still going to be learning. I'm going to still be looking at different things. And just because people think, oh, no, that's not right for me, I don't need to know about it, I'm like, no, that is bullshit. You ignorant, narrow-minded mind like that is going to really hold you back in life, because what might not be appropriate for someone right now might be incredibly powerful for them in 2 or 3 years, but they refuse to learn about it. So they don't ever get the opportunity to allow that strategy or that product or that service, work for them. Be open. Like I listen to and learn all sorts of different things, and a lot of things are not appropriate to my situation, but I still want to know about it, so that if I, am having a conversation with someone, I could say, oh, look, you should really go and look into that or learn about that. That could be really interesting or helpful for you. or I can think, you know what, not right for us right now, but that's something I really would like to revisit in 5 or 6 years time, once we've got, you know, the mortgage down more, or, you know, or when we're ready to start doing this and that. You've got to have an open mind and understand everything, like turn over all the stones so that you know which of the stones, you know, are right for building your house.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, I just think education is key, and being open-minded. I'm so open-minded. I try and look at it from all perspectives. And I think that's what helped me as well, because traditionally my family do not believe in shares.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too risky. You're going to lose money.
A traditional Greek family, like it's always been bricks and mortar. Like
Yes. Absolutely. Like, it's, you know, even like moving to Sydney with no money, like you can't do that. You can't move. I guess now I'm at a stage where when I have children, I can teach them this kind of thing, and they can be proud of their finances. And again, I'm not blaming my family. They, you know, have taught me quite a bit. Like, they actually have taught me quite a bit now that I have these conversations. Like, I'm at an age where I'll ring my grandma and we'll have big chats about money, and she disagrees with a lot of what I believe in, but it's interesting. Like, it's interesting to hear from someone who, you know, she was growing up during World War II. We've never experienced anything like that, although now I guess it's an interesting time now.
I'd love to just end with it, if you don't mind sharing, because this is a really interesting thing you've raised, is how does one manage cultural conflict? Like, your parents grew up investing in have known bricks and mortar, as probably would your grandmother, and then you turn around and say, no, I'm going to invest in shares, and they panic and think you're gambling, or you're going to lose all your money, and it's illegal, or or it's suspicious or dangerous. Like, how did you handle saying, no, this is my financial strategy, this is what I believe in, this is what I'm investing in? How did you share that with them and deal with the pushback from them, if there was any at all?
Yeah, sure. So I guess that is something I've always struggled with. Now that I'm more confident and I feel financially independent, it doesn't bother me a lot anymore, because I know that everyone has a different journey. Like, my uncle believes that investment properties are the only safe thing, which is fine because he's done incredibly in that kind of area. But for me, that's fine. That's his journey. I don't know enough about investment properties to be able to do that. I have read and I feel confident in my share portfolio, and I've done so much research that I just, I've just got to be strong enough now at this point in my life to be like, okay, yeah, I'm 27. I don't have a house. All of my family members had homes when they were 25 or younger, but that's not me. I'm on a completely different journey. I went to Sydney. I spent so much money in Sydney just on rent, but the achievements and the things I did over there are just, I look back and I'm just so proud of that. And they didn't have those experiences. They worked their guts out their whole life, and that's fine. That's also fine. But for me, I guess, had to learn to shut it out. And my brother is very open-minded like me. He's also on his own journey. Him and I probably disagree with a lot, but, he doesn't care that I don't have a house. Big deal. He doesn't have a house either. He's building an amazing global business at the moment. So he's on his own journey. And sometimes I feel like we're looked down upon in a way because we don't own homes, but I'm working towards that, and in time it will come. So I just think, own your story, own your craft, own what you're doing at this, very moment in time. And in the future, you'll love yourself for it. You'll be better for it.
So true, and such wise and respectful words that we, I think, all need to hear right now.
Thanks so much, Canna. It's been incredible to share my story, and it's actually been quite therapeutic as well.
Oh, I'm glad. I love hearing that. I think it's nice to take the time to stop and acknowledge like what you've done and how far you've come, and how you've turned your life around. Like, that's not to be forgotten about or, swept under the rug. Like, it's all an important part of your journey and your building blocks, and being, I think, aware of that, your life and what you're building is going to only help you preserve and continue on building, greater financial success in your life, because you're aware and you respect the amount of work that's gone into to make these huge changes. and shifts.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
No, my pleasure. Now, in listening to Natarsha's story, I hope that you feel empowered and inspired to take control of your financial future, to know that whilst things might be tough right now, it's not always going to be this way. And the importance and value of financial education, and then applying that financial education and knowledge in your own world, not just writing a budget, but actually sticking to it and reviewing it and adjusting it. And also being aware of that income bracket creep so that your lifestyle never gets out of hand with any pay rises that you may get in the future, but instead you take a more balanced approach and you always include financial freedom and independence in all of your goals. Thank you everyone for listening to Sugar Mama's Fireplate podcast. I really hope that you're enjoying all of my podcasts, my YouTube videos, and of course all of my content on Instagram. If you could please leave me a rating and a review, I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, don't forget, How Do They Afford That is published every Wednesday morning. All right, everyone, have a fantastic week ahead, and we will reconnect again shortly with strengthening and improving and building upon your financial well-being. Ciao for now. Hi everyone, welcome back.